All right. I don't know if I'm live. This may have auto started. Oh, yeah, I am live. Here we go. All right. I did not know that was going to auto start. All right. Welcome to Locked On Hornets. We've got another trade to talk about. Sorry you had to stare at me looking down at my notes for a minute, but the Charlotte Hornets have made another trade at the deadline. They are acquiring center Jusuf Nurkic from the Phoenix Suns in exchange for wing Cody Martin and for backup point guard, reserve point guard, Vasa Micic. And Topo, you guys are ready. Oh my gosh. You are in the chat right now. You are giving me life because I just did an hour of Locked On NBA and then this trade happened. I said, I'm going live. I don't know what my energy level is going to be, but you folks in the chat right now, what's going on? K Washington, what up, Doug? What up, K Washington? Brandon, give me the Topo. That's what we say when we go live here on Locked On Hornets. Hardly Boiled Egg said Peterson cooked. Peterson did cook. He cooked. The verb cooked. He is not cooked. He was doing the cooking. Chef Peterson out there doing whatever he can to bring the Charlotte Hornets first-round picks. I forgot the first-round pick. They not only got Jusuf Nurkic, they get a first-round pick. Now, is it a heavily protected first-round pick swap that I think has to go through like 4 other teams? It's got to go around the world like 2 or 3 times on international flights before it ever gets to Charlotte? Maybe. But that's okay because as we found out with the De'Aaron Fox deal, when De'Aaron Fox moved from Sacramento to San Antonio, even fake first-round picks are still first-round picks when it comes to GMs going out there, big game hunting. And I think that's what the Charlotte Hornets are preparing themselves to do, either in this next offseason that we've got coming up or when they go to look to make upgrades to this team at the next trade deadline. And so when people asked me, what's your best case scenario for the trade deadline, I said, if they can manage to get first round pick assets out of this deadline for any of the players outside of the obvious ones in LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, if they can get first round draft picks back, that's best case scenario because you are asset building. That's where the Charlotte Hornets are right now. And look what Jeff Peterson did. Goes out and trades Mark Williams to the Los Angeles Lakers, gets their last available first round pick that they had to trade. And then in this deal with Phoenix, they get one of those complicated pick swaps that Phoenix, they basically split the baby on their first round pick and sent it to, I believe, Utah and Danny Ainge for a number of pick swaps. And so that's what the Hornets end up getting back. So maybe is it a fake first rounder? Maybe. But they also do something that they needed to do, which is they acquired a center in Jusuf Nurkic, who was sitting the bench for the Phoenix Suns. He was relegated to the bench. He's 30 years old. He's a 7-footer whose points per shot attempt, his efficiency has never been quite there, but he has shown a willingness to shoot and in certain spaces has shown an ability to shoot. 32% this year for Phoenix, which would put him in the 31st percentile among bigs in terms of accuracy. But in terms of frequency, I mean, he'll throw him up. 30% of his offense, of his shot attempts this season in 25 games came from three-point shots and non-corner three-point shots as well. So he was tossing him up for Phoenix. I'm not sure that Phoenix was a huge fan of it because they relegated him not just to the bench, but all the way to the bench. They were not playing this guy, saving him for the trade deadline. So I'm going to pop in and out of the chat. I got about a half hour before I have to dip out. I really just wanted to commune with folks who were, I know, excited about this trade deadline. Jared Carpenter saying, let's go. We got COD Tesm saying, what a day for Jeff Peterson. Nick Sands saying W. I haven't seen any L's. This is an all W chat right now. Mr. Elevation, let's go. If you think this trade deadline was an L for the Charlotte Hornets, I want to know, and I want to know why, because it's going to be very interesting to get those opinions as well. Oh, a request for the Big Dub hat. You know it. I had it on standby, baby. Big Dub hat. Let me make sure it's turned the right way. Messing up my perfect coif in my hair today, but that's okay. Those are the kind of sacrifices you make as a Hornets podcaster when Jeff Peterson and this front office is willing to do what it takes to protect the future of this franchise. You know, I heard a lot of opinions about this Mark Williams deal from some of these national podcasts, national pundits, not Matt Moore and Hayes. They're smart. They're my co-host on Locked On NBA. They're smarter than this. Also heard this from a lot of Locked On Lakers podcasters that were pretending that they've ever watched a Charlotte Hornets game. And the line of analysis went like this. Here go the Charlotte Hornets again. They don't want to re-sign anyone. They're cheaping out on Mark Williams. They're up against it. They don't want to deal with that. Here they go again. And that's such like old analysis of the Charlotte Hornets when they were owned by Michael Jordan, when they were having a front office run by Rich Cho and by Mitch Kupchak, who were essentially, Rich Cho started out as someone that would oppose Michael Jordan and say, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. But by the end of it, he was a yes man. Mitch Kupchak, UNC ties, was a yes man. He was executing what Michael Jordan wanted to do with this franchise, which was not much, which was make sure the books are clean, which is I don't want to pay a lot of money and risk not winning in the playoffs. And by the time they were ready to go and move assets, the assets were ruined. Nobody wanted them. And so what have you seen both from Jeff Peterson and this new ownership group before they hired Peterson was a willingness to get out there and move assets at the right time, have relationships, make calls, find situations like Los Angeles where they were desperate for a center, find situations like Phoenix where they were desperate to make any kind of move that was going to upgrade their roster because Phoenix missed out on they missed out on moving Kevin Durant. They missed out on getting Jimmy Butler. And so what does Charlotte do? You want to be the team that is approaching the desperate team and saying, hey, what can we do for you? Wink, wink. But really, it's all about what you're getting back. And what the Hornets got back was not only someone that can help them with the center position, and maybe into the future, we have to see, is Jusuf Nurkic's ceiling Nikola Jokic? I mean, I guess my ceiling's Michael Jordan. You know, I mean, like, well, you can say whatever. Look, obviously, Jusuf Nurkic has holes in his game. I'm going to dig into the tape. I'll get really familiar with Jusuf Nurkic tonight. We'll talk more about it with Walker Mail tomorrow. I'm not sure that I'm going to have a lot of deep analysis about what you're getting in Jusuf Nurkic. You're getting a guy that is competitive, does have toughness. Like, I mean, when he was in Charlotte, you saw him tussling when he did play against Charlotte. You saw him tussling with Brandon Miller. You saw him getting into the faces, almost starting fights with the Charlotte Hornets. So he's a guy with an attitude, and I love that. I think the Hornets need more toughness. They need more attitude. In fact, when you ejected Mark Williams, I think you ejected some of that other mentality of like not being tough enough, of not being physical enough. Not a lot of people are going to accuse Nurkic of that. They're going to accuse him of being a little bit too physical sometimes, of making mistakes, of having a hot head, of picking up technicals. Like there's going to be some of that analysis that's going to come out in this deal. But the Hornets, in acquiring Dalton Knecht in the trade of Mark Williams to Los Angeles, they were left with a glut of, 6'5", 6'7" wings. And you added someone in Dalton Knecht that is going to be a liability on the defensive end, but is going to be an absolute heater on the offensive end. And you're getting rid of someone in Cody Martin that was the opposite because you kind of had that mold with Josh Green. And you're a few years away from truly having to make the estimation of like, well, do we have enough defense here? You really want to bring in players. You want to bring in assets so you can go and get the true veterans who are going to really shift your franchise direction. Like Jusuf Nurkic is not shifting the franchise direction. Dalton Knecht, unless he makes serious developments in a lot of his game and just goes on an absolute heater offensively that can't be stopped, he's not going to change the direction of your franchise. But the first round pick assets that will then get moved for the veteran, whoever, we need to study and find out, like, do the Hornets make a play for someone that's going to be available in 2026? Maybe a disgruntled superstar. Maybe one in Milwaukee if things fall apart. Maybe rhymes with Blanis. I don't know. I'm thinking crazy. Today's a crazy day. Today's the day for crazy thoughts. But you go in and you make those kind of moves. And if you're going to make those kind of moves, if you're going to swoop in like Cleveland did to go and get Donovan Mitchell and then convince him to stay in the small market, you have to have the pick assets. You've got to make good draft picks. They've got an opportunity to do that with a lot of talent up top in this draft. And then you have to have the other pick assets that you can go and use and honestly, like, capture somebody like Donovan Mitchell, capture a star either in the making or already, and then convince them that, hey, we've also put some winning talent around you. Zach saying, what up, Doug? What's going on, Zach? Thanks for joining us live here on Locked On Hornets. Subscribe to the podcast. Tell a friend. This is the day to tell a friend about what we're doing here on the podcast. Tell them, hey, there's this ridiculous guy that likes to put on ridiculous hats, and he has a co-host who is an absolute basketball expert and a big voice in Charlotte media, and they run the best podcast on the Charlotte Hornets that has ever existed and is on every day. Be our disciples. Go out and tell people about what we're doing on Locked On Hornets. We are sickos to the very end. Join the Sicko Brigade. Join subtext.com/Locked On Hornets. The link is in the description of every episode. Text me. I've been doing Locked On NBA, and now I'm doing this. So I'm sure I've got like a ton of texts, but I will answer them all. Today is a special day. I'm going to be on the phone as soon as I go and get my kid, settle the kid down. I'm going to say, today, baby, every 364 days of the year about you, baby. But one day, trade deadline, I've got responsibilities. I've got to talk to the sickos about what's going on with the Charlotte Hornets. All right, Jason Farmer saying, love it. Joey saying, Reddish, ? I got big question marks about Cam Reddish as well. I'm not sure exactly where he fits in. Neither does ESPN, because Cam Reddish is 5th on the shooting guard depth chart, according to ESPN. I mean, I'm sure they're kind of just throwing that together, but I could very well see Cam Reddish getting bought out or waived, not made room for, because I think they have, well, now that they went 2 out, 1 in on the Jusuf deal, that actually opens up the roster spot. But they're eventually going to have to make Moussa Diabate a full-time member of this roster, so that's going to require some movement. So I'm not sure about Cam Reddish's future in Charlotte. Speaking of the depth chart, obviously LaMelo Ball starting point guard. Big question here. I mean, in the meantime, with Brandon Miller out for the season, I think Dalton Knecht immediately slots in as your starting 2 guard, small forward Josh Green. And then next season will be the big question mark. Is Dalton Knecht your 6th man off the bench, just dropping threes, dropping layups at the rim constantly? Is that the plan? And then you go with Josh Green and Brandon Miller as your 2-3. Miles Bridges doesn't get traded. All the intel was Cody Martin, Vasa Micic, Miles Bridges. He doesn't get moved. I think there were probably several teams that they were talking to. Memphis doesn't get anything done. The Wolves don't get anything done. Maybe Miles was part of the Phoenix discussion. There's some history there. And maybe Phoenix would have had to get a 3rd team involved because they couldn't aggregate salaries, meaning they couldn't put 2 salaries together or couldn't bring back 2 salaries. No, they couldn't put 2 salaries together to then send out to bring back Miles Bridges because they were over the second apron. All right, I got it. It's all confusing. But it would have been more complicated. So maybe just the time ran out. They couldn't find the other team that they needed. I'm purely speculating. I have no intel on why Miles Bridges is still a member of this team. I think, if I had to guess, I think that they were 1st-round pick hunting and that they were not going to take 3 or 4 second-rounders for Miles Bridges, that they were fully prepared to take Miles Bridges into the rest of the season. He's given them good minutes all season long. He has been daddy buckets. He has been the guy surrounded by a bunch of young kids who makes this team somewhat palatable, allows them to develop some of this young talent, right? You've got to have someone on there that understands what he's doing on the floor to make some of this other stuff work. And so, I could fully see them saying, all right, well, we're fine hanging with Bridges for another year, and we'll figure out what to do with them in this upcoming offseason when they could potentially move him with picks and use that salary. That salary comes down a little bit in this next season, and it could be used. If you're going to move picks, you've also got to match salary. So if you're going to make a move for a star or an all-star level player with a big number, then you've got to have the money that you can match it and not give up a bunch of young assets to make it all work. So Miles Bridges' number could be important in that. So important that they would have turned down another unprotected 1st? I don't think so. But that probably was not on the table. Sam Davis saying no Reggie for us this year. Yep, no Reggie Jackson move. He did get traded to Washington, and then I think Washington either traded him or waived him. So Reggie Jackson continues to bounce around. Next up, we play the Spurs and Wemby. Maybe, I think there's a good chance the final game for the Hornets in this 9-game homestand, and then they go out on the road for 9 straight games. It's going to be split up by the All-Star break. But I just wonder if Wemby gets a little case of the spectrum flu and decides to sit out that game. Hopefully not. Hopefully for Hornets fans that get a chance to see some of the stars come out the spectrum, that you're going to see both De'Aaron Fox and Wemby suit up, because I remember, I've never seen Wemby in person. I have seen Chet Holmgren in person, and they have similar body types, and it is amazing to see those human beings and how they play basketball. Speaking of Chet Holmgren, healthy again. He's going to be, this is not Locked On NBA. That has nothing to do with the Charlotte Hornets. Okay, let's get back to this chat. Walker Martin, not Walker Mail, Walker Martin. Maybe that's Walker. Is that actually you, Walker Mail? Maybe you just want to jump in the chat. I'm not sure. Trey Mann and Dalton Connect off the bench is a nasty duo. We're going to dream about it. Trey Mann, I'm not sure we're going to see him the rest of the season. No confirmations on that. Been a little bit of whispering about that. This back injury is just lingering. You wonder if they do the same thing that they did with Mark Williams when he had the back injury, which is at some point just say, all right, get healthy. This is not responding. It's just going to take time, and we'll see you next season. But yeah, I mean, having Trey Mann and Dalton Connect, I mean, those are the kind of pieces you want coming off the bench. That's the kind of depth that teams that are serious about competing, that's the kind of depth, the kind of versatility, particularly with Trey Mann, less so with, you got offensive versatility with Dalton Connect. We didn't really talk about that, but a lot of people assume like Dalton Connect, he's just a three-point shooter. I was talking with host of Locked On Lakers, Andy Kamenetsky, and he said, no, like, dude can drive. He can put the ball on the floor. He can finish through contact. You're going to be surprised about what he can do offensively. And the answer is there's not a ton he can't do. There's not a spot on the floor where he's not going to be able to get to. So that's exciting. Particularly, look, I mean, he's an older rookie, obviously, but there's still room for development there. Is there like a massive room? No, but there's still room for his development. And Andy Kamenetsky also told me that he's a worker. Like, he's a guy that comes in, he wants to do the work, and I think that's going to match perfectly with what Charles Lee is asking these guys to do. And you look at the transformation that Charles Lee has been able to make with Nick Smith Jr.'s defense, and you say to yourself, is it impossible to make Dalton Connect into a functional defender? No, not if your team is going to focus on that. Look, the Los Angeles Lakers were not focused on defense. They've been a bad defensive team all year. They've been focused on offense. And so if Dalton Connect comes here, you know, he's not going to be an elite defensive player. He's never going to be. He's going to have physical limitations, athletic limitations that are going to keep him from becoming that. But he can become a functional defensive player. If Nick Smith Jr. can become a functional defensive player, which he is right now, I mean, I won't say he single-handedly shut down Jordan Poole, but he certainly held Jordan Poole in check. Like, if he can turn into a functional player, why can't Dalton Connect? That would be my question. Out of time, big supporter of this show. Thank you. Both on Subtext, he's part of the Sicko Brigade, and here on YouTube. The fact we now have given both major players with a history of ankle fractures a chance is insane. Very true. Nurk's contract. Let's see. Nurkic contract. We're going to find out together. I really just jumped on here immediately after Locked On NBA. I didn't have this information on hand. So he's due $18 million this season, and then $19 million guaranteed next season, and then he's an unrestricted free agent. So there are no player options or team options. $19 million next season. Jason says, definitely the best Sicko podcast, not close. Thank you. Samurai Dragon said, so happy we traded Micic. Look, tough year for Micic, man. I mean, I loved Vasa. I love me some Vasa Micic. I thought he was the player. You know, we love Trey Mann. We love Trey Mann on here. But Vasa Micic was the hang-up that almost killed the OKC deal for Gordon Hayward. It wasn't Trey Mann. It was Vasa Micic. They didn't want to let go of Vasa Micic. And he showed some great play in place of an injured LaMelo Ball to end last season. And then he gets to this season. He's out of shape. He's turning the basketball over left and right. And in backup minutes, he wasn't having a good time. And you could see that. And then as soon as LaMelo Ball gets hurt and he got big minutes, like freaking clockwork, he got right back to it. I don't know what his role is going to be in Phoenix, but Phoenix better sure hope they give him minutes, because that's the only way this dude plays. And that's, what are you going to do? What can you do about that as a franchise? I'm not sure. I mean, they went in the offseason and talked to him. Like Charles Lee made it a point to find Vasa Micic and say, here's what we think of you. Here's what your role is going to be. And everybody was saying the right things. And then just from like 21 Jump Street, he was awful. So I'm happy they were able to accumulate assets using Vasa Micic. That is what I will say about that. Blake, center that shoots threes, plays physical, got rid of Mark. I don't know. Something seems fishy. You sure you didn't do this trade? You sure you did? You sure I didn't do this trade is what you're asking? Everyone knows you're in Peterson's ear. Well, I will say I don't know Jeff Peterson personally. I consider him a kindred spirit at this point. Maybe he listens to the podcast. Maybe OPS typing along. Maybe you're secretly Jeff Peterson. I'm kidding. You're probably not. But, look, we know that players will secretly listen to these team podcasts. Maybe GMs too. No, listen, I think Jeff Peterson, extremely well-respected front office guy, young guy coming into the Hornets. And I think he brought that respect with him. And I think what this really comes down to is honestly just a full reframing of what the Hornets should be doing as a franchise, which is not constantly trying to save money, but instead build assets, find these unique opportunities to get on the phone and get deals done, right? Go beyond the specifics of the deal. Go beyond the details. And just understand this. Jeff Peterson gets deals done. Pen to paper, and those deals typically come back with first-round picks. I mean, it's Presti-like. It's Presti-like. When you see the long list of first-round pick assets that they have, it took Presti a while to build that absurd list in Oklahoma City. Jeff's doing it. How long will we stay patient as the Hornets continue to play poorly? I don't know. How long will LaMelo Ball stay patient? Will conversations between LaMelo Ball and the franchise get more uncomfortable in the next season, particularly after this offseason if they don't make a move for veteran talent? If Miles Bridges is shipped out in this next offseason for assets, for like pick assets and not player assets that help LaMelo Ball play better basketball. We've seen LaMelo Ball be frustrated this season already with certain lineups that he was a part of, bench lineups that were not good enough. LaMelo was trying to find them with passes and they were failing. These are all questions that we will continue to talk about here on Locked On Hornets every single day. Subscribe to the podcast. If you're a big YouTube fan of this podcast, go subscribe on the audio feeds. Do it on Apple Podcasts. Do it on Spotify. That helps the show. If you're an audio-only listener and you just saw this come up live, hit subscribe, hit like, tell a friend about what we're doing on here. Because here's the thing. People that are watching this episode right now, you are the sickos. You are the hipsters. And maybe you're discovering this for the first time. Welcome. But I would venture to say that most of you are veterans of this podcast. You've been with us. Maybe you've been with us since I started doing this in 2013. The show is called Podcasts. I don't know that anyone is around. I think only my close family and close friends were listening at that time. But maybe you've been with the show since we were Locked On Hornets in 2016. We appreciate you. We thank you. One day, this team will be good. One day, we will be doing a podcast on a playoff Charlotte Hornets team. And people will be wanting to know, like, what podcast do we go to? What assets are out there? And so just get them prepared now. Tell them, look, something's brewing in Charlotte, and you got to start listening to this show because they have fun and they talk about the game. And we try to talk about it in a smart way and also, obviously, be a little bit ridiculous. All right, Bruno's saying nice moves on this trade deadline. Thank you, Bruno. Yeah, I wonder if we're going to get some new Nurkic fans. We're going to get some Nurkic heads over on the podcast now. We'll see. Obviously, the Micic fans, if there were any, they are now moving on to the Phoenix Suns. Rob saying, I hope the vision is Cooper Flagg and then using assets to trade for a star and start competing. I feel like it has to be, right? Like if you land the number 1 overall pick, I think you hit the gas. Like if you move down to 7, then you start to think like, all right, maybe we wait a couple of years. I don't know. Maybe you try to go, because I think the class after this, there's a Boozer. There's a lot of like NBA pedigree in that draft. There's a DeBonsa that is available. AJ DeBonsa, who's getting a lot of love. Like the next class is looking good too. I think if you land Cooper Flagg, honestly, I think if you land anything in the top 3, I think you have to consider, because I think all 3 of those players have some like play now, win now quality to them. When you're talking about the Rutgers boys, Dylan particularly, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey maybe has some work to do. We're going to talk to Nada tomorrow about all of these moves, and I want to get some of his draft thoughts as well. But yeah, I think if you get one of those top 3 picks, you hit the gas, and you get LaMelo Ball to the playoffs as quickly as possible. All right, I got to drop here in a few minutes, but let's take a couple of more comments. Useless Tuber Now saying losing Mark hurts my soul. I get it. I mean, I joked around a little bit about being careful about people's feelings, but I am serious. Like I know there were Mark Williams fans. I was one of them once, and then became not a fan because of what I saw. But yeah, I mean, the promise of a great big man is what we've been waiting for so long, and we've had to deal with Spencer Hawes and Roy Hibbert and Mason Plumlee. God, thank God Mason Plumlee didn't come back on the Phoenix deal, because I just can't deal with there were so many people who glommed onto Mason Plumlee and then so many people who hated him. It was worse than Mark Williams, that dichotomy. But we've waited a long time in the desert post Big Al, so I get it. But it wasn't going to happen here. This is kind of what I said to Locked On Lakers when I went on their show. Like, I think there is genuine hope that he can turn things around in Los Angeles, and I'm not going to feel bad about it because I don't think it was going to happen in Charlotte. For whatever reason, this just wasn't working. And the Hornets knew a lot more than we all knew. We all were watching games and going, something seems weird here. The team knew a lot more. Will we get reporting on that? I don't know. All right, our new GM, listen, Corn fan for life. Our new GM is a gangsta. Well, he's getting a lot of first round picks. I mean, he is dealing right now. I love it. 97 Ghost says, yeah, Bosnians watch Nurkic. Welcome. We always love fans from all over the world. We've got fans from Norway, from Iceland, from the UK, from Germany, that are on everyhornetsboxscore.com. By the way, check that out too. I don't think I've plugged that yet. We David Walker and I write about every Hornets game, every single one. No, I'm serious. Every single one, even the ones where literally everyone is hurt. We write about them because they're important, for history's sake, but also because eventually we will remember those building blocks when this team becomes good. We need defensive monsters to protect our guys. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to look at Nurkic's defensive metrics. You know, I think he's a guy, again, that's physical, but I don't know. I don't know that I really associate Nurkic with really good defense. I'll take a deeper look into B-ball index and see where they had. Speaking of B-ball index, I looked up Mark Williams on that, and his interior defensive numbers, he was getting F grades for that. The defensive numbers looked really bad this season. His roll man game, good. Defense, bad. Will Nurkic start? Certainly. You got to have size. Moussa Diabate almost knocked over my bowl of cereal. That's all I'm running on right now. I had a bowl of cereal. I have had 17 cups of coffee. That's what I'm running on right now. And just sheer Jeff Peterson driven adrenaline. Will Nurkic start? Yes, you need size. Moussa Diabate is Tasmanian Devil, pure effort player. He's going to get a contract. He'll play backup center. Taj Gibson will occasionally get some run, but the body can only, he's a certain age and the body can only do what the body is going to do at that age. So he'll get spot minutes. Moussa Diabate will continue to provide energy off the bench, but yes, you start Nurkic. Hallie saying, is it Hallie or Haley? Now, because I've only seen your name written. You're a big supporter of the show on YouTube here, but also on Every Hornets Box Score. So let me know, Hallie or Haley. I think you're also my Star Trek Next Generation fan. I finally rewatched the Tin Man. Great episode. I'm pretty sure I have that right. It's been a long day. If I don't, I apologize. Haley saying, so relieved man is still with us. Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to trade anyone. Halle Berry. Perfect. Halle. Great. So pretty tough to trade. I think a player in his position with the back injury is just going to be too many question marks. Particularly with it not like, I don't think there would have been medical issues with trading that guy. I think there would have been issues with that going through. Walker was telling me, I think off camera, he was a little worried that was going to happen with the Mark Williams stuff. But the Lakers are confident in the medicals. That's what Andy Kamenetsky told me on Locked On Lakers. They're confident in the medicals. You can be medically healthy and also not in great shape. Just saying. Something to think about. Jermaine, LaMelo should get traded to a bigger market. Get out of here, Jermaine. Get out of here. There's no that. Look, we will take everyone that we can get, from Bosnia to the UK to I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. We'll take them from all over. There's no room in the sicko satchel for people that want to see LaMelo traded to a bigger market. Get out of here. You've been ejected, Jermaine. Jonathan Jones saying, you think Bridges is still here next season or move this offseason? Tough to say. I can see it both ways. I think that in the offseason, they'll be less restrictive about what they want. And again, I mentioned this, you might have joined late. I mentioned this at the top of the show, but his salary is still important for the Charlotte Hornets if they want to get a future deal done that involves the first round picks that they're acquiring. You've got to match the money. It makes things simpler. I think teams like simple. We've seen a lot of 3, 4, 5 teams deals with the CBA. Those are hard. Those are hard to put together and require a lot of sacrifice. If you can go to a team and say, hey, I got this contract here, match 1-to-1, bing, bang, boom, throw a couple of first round picks and we call it a deal. That's easy. They're human beings. These general managers are human beings. They want easy. We all want easy. So that's what I would say. Jermaine, lol, I'm staying. That's fine. We take the click anyway. If you watch regularly, we're fine. You can stay. You can stay. But I'm not going to hear that. I'm not going to hear any more of that nonsense about trading LaMelo to a market. He's here. He's committed. For now. Simply Raymond, what will our record be at the end of the season? They've got 12 wins right now. Could they get to 20? They got a lot of road games coming up, and LaMelo's going to come back. I don't think LaMelo's out for the year, right? He's going to come back. They can win games. Did their roster significantly get better? Offensively, yeah. Like Jusuf and Dalton plus offensively. I tweeted this in jest, or not tweeted, whatever. What do you do on Blue Sky? I'm not sure. It's like the only social media network I contribute to anymore. On Blue Sky, and I don't really even do that much. I'm all about smaller communities now. Like, I love this. Going back and forth on YouTube here like this, or Every Hornets Box Score, the chat that we do, or subtext. I like these small communities. That's what I'm into. Forget social media. For so long, I was chasing the algorithm, and I was trying to build up my follower base, and it's all just ego play. Like, I like these small communities where we can talk intelligently, and it's not me microphoning myself to the whole world. It's more about like, let's chat it up. Anyway, so on Blue Sky, though, I did joke that I might have just lost my train of thought. What did I joke about? I joked about, we were talking about whether the Hornets were going to win or not, LaMelo Ball coming back. I'm going to look on Blue Sky to see what I joked about. My jokes are too important, and we got time. I don't have to leave yet. One of the things that I've realized I've watched other people do live shows, and one of the things that I realize is that I think it probably makes for a better show, but like I talk a lot. I want to keep the conversation going. I don't like the silences, but in more live stuff I've seen, people aren't afraid to just like chill out for a second and look stuff up. I just went to bluesky.com. That didn't work. That's a whole, I don't know what Blue Sky, it looks like a stationary website. That's not what I wanted. I wanted bsky.app. Okay. It's been a long day, folks. I've been up. I need to do the thing that I did on the show, which is one of these. I joked that Signs, your favorite national reporter, does not watch the Hornets. They say that the Hornets don't play defense. That was my number one. Like, if you watch the Hornets all season long, the one thing that you could say about them is that they've improved their defense from dead last in the league at the beginning of the season, even though they've had to play a G League roster, G League bench for a good enough portion. They've gotten themselves into somewhere between the 20s and 15. Like, that's a massive improvement when you consider not only were they dead last in like the first 10 or 15 games of the season, they were dead last by a mile. They were getting run off the floor. But the thing that didn't change was the offense. Because fundamentally, they didn't have shooters, they didn't have playmakers, they didn't have ball handlers outside of LaMelo Ball. Then LaMelo gets hurt. It gets even worse. Dalton Connect immediately fixes that. Jusuf Nurkic will somewhat fix that. Like, it's going to, I think, regardless, and I'm not really answering your question about number of wins, I think they can get to 20. I'll just say that. They finished with 20 wins. But more than that, more than wins or losses, I think this is going to be a much more entertaining product to watch. The entertainment of the Charlotte Hornets has really come via watching Moussa Diabate just go out there and go crazy. Watching Nick Smith Jr. develop into an offensive player, which he started, we thought he was going to be, and then it turned out he wasn't, and then he started playing defense better, and now his offense is back. Watching that has been cool. But I think Dalton Connect and Jusuf Nurkic, if they don't suddenly get moved in some other way, I think that presents as a more entertaining product. Darrell says his tray shut down. No confirmation on that. It doesn't look great. Would I be shocked at all? Would I be surprised at all? Would I go, yeah, if Trey Mann were shut down for the rest of the year? Yeah, that's what I would go. Matt Noonan, yes, I've seen that for Blue Sky. I'm not going to say it. I've seen that's what people are calling it. I'm not going to say it because I think it's weird or like a weird word. It's just like, that can't be it. It's got to be something better. Edward Allgood, can Jusuf shoot? I don't remember him putting up threes. Well, he certainly tried, and his percentages have not been great. But I'm going to do more analysis of Jusuf Nurkic. I got on here to kind of talk about 30,000-foot stuff. I haven't talked much about Cody Martin, the end of the Cody Martin era. It's tough, man. I mean, the crazy injuries that he dealt with where it was like the leg and the thigh and maybe the ankle, and it was all this mystery. It cost him so much time. I mean, he was shooting the ball so well prior to those injuries and prior to all that time missed. And he came back, and this is another guy that I felt like you never questioned effort. People question like, oh, why is he not getting back on the floor? It's like, dude, because the guy had weird injuries. Like, I don't know, man. But obviously, sad to see Cody Martin go. I liked him as a player. But yeah, he wasn't a complete player by any stretch of the imagination. And offensively, they made upgrades. Eric saying, I love that NSJ is back to, wait a minute, it got away from me, message retracted. I think the notion of that comment was that you were glad to see NSJ getting to some of the playground level of offense. And I would say, honestly, I've been more impressed that NSJ has played better within the flow of a normal NBA offense that the Hornets run. That I think he's been more he's been less playground. He's been less playing jazz, and more like, hey, I'm going to get this handoff, come off this handoff, boom, pull up, or make one or two moves. Because I thought part of the problem for NSJ is he was doing a poor man's impression of Trey Mann. I think he's less look like that and more look like someone that's like NSJ. So that's what I would say about some of the improvements that he's made to his game. Brandon saying Charles Lee player development is underrated. I think so. I think they've stayed more patient with players than they have in the past. Skeleton saying RIP Markey. But I think the but there is the Hornets made the right move. Even Mark's fans, I think, have to admit to themselves that this was the right move. It was the right time. Because if you don't do it now, you're going to be faced with the question, do you extend him early? And if you answer that question no, then you have to answer the question why. And you don't have to answer it to fans, but when someone picks up the phone and says, ring, ring, or you pick up the phone and say, hey, what about Mark? They're going to say, oh, why didn't you extend him early? We got through the grapevine that you didn't want to extend him. What's going on there? You got to strike when teams are desperate and before you reveal what you really think about a player. And to me, moving him now tells you everything you need to know about what this organization thought about the future of Mark Williams. Because if he was going to be a future promising player for the Charlotte Hornets, I think this team, with no depth at center, would have jumped at the chance to extend him, right? I think so. Maybe the Michael Jordan, Mitch Kupchak version of the franchise would not have, but I think this version would have. Okay, I have to jump off and edit Locked On NBA and get a version of that on the audio feed. Make sure you're subscribed to that show too. I certainly get more Hornets commentary on there than my predecessors. I try to drop a nugget here and there. We're obviously not making major headlines, but I do use a lot of the things that I've learned about the Hornets to make points about the NBA. Final couple of thoughts here. There's a lot of chat here, so if I didn't get to yours, I'm sorry. I'm just going to rapid fire say hey to folks. Ranger Red, thank you. Sam, thank you. Blasted Throne YT, thank you. Desmond, thank you. Trey, thank you. Shuman, Amber, thank you. Bucket, thank you. Frank Knott, I'm happy. I'm so happy Micic is gone. I'm glad you're happy. I'll say that. That's a nice way of saying it. I'm glad you're happy. Ricardo OG asked the Nurk starting question. Thank you. Hallie, thank you very much. And I'm slowly making my way through. I'm right in the next generation. Again, I've done a run through, but I think I did it when I was sick for a week. And so there's a lot of episodes that I don't remember, but I'm coming up on Jean-Luc Picard getting assimilated by the Borg. All right, that's my nerd out moment. But huge part of that franchise. So I'm coming up on that. So exciting times for me. Let's see. Waleed, thank you for joining the cast here. Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper will do wonders for us. Yes, I mean, I think you're going to cash in with any of those players. Great day to be a Hornets fan, says Nicholas Falk. And I think that's a perfect place to actually, it's an almost perfect place to end. Hallie saying resistance is futile. And I think Jeff Peterson is the Borg. And what he does is he goes and assimilates other teams' first round picks. I cannot believe he keeps coming back with first round picks. It is nuts. It's crazy. They can't resist. JP. He finds them when they're their most vulnerable and assimilates them. All right. Thank you so much for supporting the show. We are going to be back on tomorrow morning with Nada Edwards from the Ion College Basketball Podcast. We'll talk about Cooper Flagg and we'll get his take on everything that went down and talk to Walker Mail as well. For David and Walker and Nada and the whole family here, I'm saying go Hornets, go America. Let's swarm. Let's swarm Charlotte. Let's do it.